was going to be here. But this is an amazing turnout for a really significant project that we are very excited to share with you today. My name is Savannah Wood. I'm Executive Director of AFRO Charities. I just usurped our programs coordinator's role as MC today because I wanted to be the first to address you. I'm so sorry. I'm going to introduce our board chair at AFRO Charities, Rob Matthews, who is coming to the podium now to open this program with prayer.
So a few comments before I pray. First of all, let's just establish the protocol. I'm a Baltimorean, born at Huffman and Patterson. Grew up at Lafayette and Montfort, and City College High School. So let's get that in the way. Couple of things that connects me to this great work. When I was at in high school at City, and I was becoming incoming student government president, I called over to the AFRO and asked them to cover my inauguration. And so, it's worthy news. And so, the person who took the call said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Robert Matthews." And he said, "No, I didn't ask you my name. I said, what's your name?" And so that went back and forth for like 120 seconds to find out we had the same name. So that was one connection. And then secondly, when I was at Montfort and Lafayette, my dad had us to scrub the marble steps every Saturday morning and to take that tire and make it into a flower pot. And so when they called and asked me to be on the board, it was an opportunity to make my parents proud, who both rested, to come back and to do this work. I'm more happy to do it today than I was to do it then. So we're excited about this moment and the responsibility assigned to us. There is, at one point, an insidious effort to take away our history. It's no longer insidious. It is aggressive and assertive. And so we are particularly called in this moment to preserve and protect this valuable history. And so we are now at this moment, we are called, we are readied, and we are prepared to do this work. In your programs, just want to call your attention to the Save the Date for June, our fundraiser. We want your support and your money. We love you. So do that. Let's go into prayer. Oh, loving God, we love you. We worship you because you are great and mighty. We praise you because of so many things that you've done. When we think about the history that we have now been called to protect, we know it's because of you that we have this history. We are thoughtful about Psalm 118, 23, 24, that these are the Lord's doings, and they are marvelous in our eyes. And this is the day that the Lord has made, and we come to this moment to rejoice and be glad in it. And so God, at this moment, we invoke your presence. We invite your presence here as we do the transformative work to break ground here, to do the work you've called us to do. We ask for your presence, not just in this moment, but in this place. Strengthen our shoulders so that we can carry the weight that comes with this assignment. Strengthen our ankle bones so that as we walk in the various places, that we walk boldly and we walk strong. Help us. God, give us the favor and the insight and the wisdom and the funding we need to continue this work. You said that you would provide all our needs according to your riches and glory. We thank you. We trust you. Anoint these boards and our partners and our political friends and neighbors and community associations, all of those who are called to be a part of this work. Anoint us and strengthen us, enable us. We trust you. We need you. We love you. Amen. Amen. I'm going to call Senator Christopher Holland to come to give comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Matthews, and thank you for taking on this important calling on the board of this important institution. And I can tell all of you that Congressman Nfume and I are very glad, at least for this short respite, to be out of Washington. especially glad to be out of Washington, D.C. and with you on this special occasion. And I do think it's very fitting that on this last day of Black History Month, we're here at this very historic place in order to make sure that we preserve the active and historic and ongoing great work of the AFRO newspapers and give them a permanent home, and that we make sure that we have a place where that history is preserved, not simply to have it for preservation purposes, which is important to tell those stories, but because we do need to make sure that we learn from our history. And all of us know that Black history is American history. You can't tell the story of America without telling the story of Black Americans. So it's a great honor to be here. Dr. Draper, good to see you again. Thank you for keeping on the family legacy. That's so important. And to all the members of AFRO Charities, Savannah Wood, thank you always for your energy, and of course to Chair Matthews. I also saw Wanda Best on the way in. Thank you and the Upton community for all you're doing here. And I do want to just salute Team Maryland, your great mayor, our great mayor, Brandon Scott. Thank you for all that you're doing. So Council President Cohen, thank you for all you're doing. I don't know if other council members are here. I know Council Member Blanchard was thinking of being here. There you are. Thank you for what you're doing. Kurt Schmoke, God bless you. Thank you for all your good work. I also want to thank, and you'll hear from members of Team Maryland, Brooke Learman, our comptroller's here, and Jake Day, Secretary of Housing and Community Development. Thank you, Jake, for what you're doing. And finally, a member of what I call Team USA and Team Maryland and Team Baltimore, Kwasi Mfume, Congressman Mfume. And let me also thank all of you for sending me a terrific new partner in the United States Senate. She couldn't be here today, but she sends her greetings as we celebrate our history in Maryland and Black history. Angela Alsterbrooks is doing a great job in the United States Senate. But it's good to be back here. We joined with the Kwasi Mfume, Congressman Mfume and I joined with many of you not that long ago when we announced $2.3 million in federal funding toward making sure that we restore the Upton Mansion. That, of course, was one piece of it, but we wanted to make sure there was an important federal contribution. And thank you to Congressman Mfume for leading the way. I'm glad to partner with you on that effort. And we also helped secure $257,000 for the digitization effort. And I do look forward to seeing so many of the documents that will be brought to life and made available to the public. Documents dating back to 1892. My understanding is the collection is about 3 million photos and documents. I mean, this is a treasure trove that we have to share with the country and indeed share with the world. It includes, I understand, a audio conversation between Dr. King and the great late Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. And thinking of Thurgood Marshall, Congressman Mfume and I and Senator Cardin and now Senator Alsterbrooks have been making a very determined effort to make sure that we invest in all the historic places in Baltimore, and especially given West Baltimore's centrality in the American story and the civil rights movement, to really do this. And I did see Reverend Hathaway, because we also have gotten funds for PS 103 elementary school where the young Thurgood Marshall went to school. And there are many other really important places. But this place right now will become a repository for the stories of the past and the stories going forward. And I do want to close with something that the chairman of the board mentioned, which is it's always important to learn our history to help light the way to a better future, to learn from our past. And that's more important than ever right now, because we have somebody in the highest office of the land, we have the President of the United States, who is determined not to learn from our history, but to erase our history, who wants to literally prevent some schools from using books that teach our history. And we are here to say, collectively, through this action, you will never erase our history. You will never erase the contributions that Black Americans have made to the American story, because that history is America's history, and we will not forget it. We will not allow anyone to whitewash it. What we will do is tell that story from the mountaintop, to learn from it so that we can continue our American journey to build a more perfect union. We are not going to let anybody turn us around and turn us back. We're moving forward, and this is a very important part of moving America forward. Thank you all for being part of that story. And now it's my great pleasure and honor to bring up a good friend, and all of you know, an incredible fighter for our country and our values, for our state of Maryland, but of course for his beloved Baltimore, Congressman Kwasi Mfume.
Well, good morning. And to all of you in the back, thank you for that standing ovation. I think it goes without saying that I am really, really happy to be here. And I may go beyond my 3 minutes just because there's an emotional aspect to this that I don't want to have lost on this moment, since we never know what part of the future we will depart in. First, I've got to say, the Chris Van Hollen you just saw is the Chris Van Hollen that people see every day, every month, every part of this state. He is sincere, he's committed, he works hard, and he believes in things that other people say will not happen and won't happen. And we have partnered on a number of different things, whether it was the Great Blacks in Wax Museum or the AFRO Archives or our beloved community with Al Hathaway, and the things that we have done with the Mitchell Home to make sure that that central part, and centrality was right, that this central part of the activist movement in Baltimore is always highlighted. I want to thank also Brooke Learman, who is here. I'm going to bring her up in a second. I think I might take one of her minutes, I don't know. You know, thank God she ran to be comptroller, and thank God we realized that the best man for a job was in fact a woman. Thank you, Brooke. Mr. Mayor, allow me to acknowledge one other mayor, if I don't, two others.
That's my mayor.
Yeah, I want to do that so that I can leave here in one piece. Mayor Wanda Best. And Mayor Kurt L. Schmoke. Where are you, Kurt? Hey! Boy, Kurt and I went through some battles back in the day. Woo. Good to see you. Good to see both of you. And my pride and joy is our current mayor. I say this all the time, but I'm very proud, really, really, of how you've kind of grown into this position and done what everybody said you couldn't do and wouldn't do, and that was to lead this city with a firm, firm hand. Brandon and I tell a story every now and then. I won't tell it all. But Brandon had a serious problem speaking as a child. His dad and uncle were buddies of mine, and so I would be around them a lot, and he just could not, because of his larynx and other things, really speak as he should at that age. And I remember one day we were at the Memorial Stadium. We had gone there to see the Baltimore Stallions, because the Colts had left town. And I was headed to the restroom, and I ran into Brandon, and I said, "Hey man, it's good to see you. Are you still a Stallion fan?" He said, "Always, always." And I said, "See how you said that? You can say anything you want to, and you ought to let it all come out of you, because there's something in you that I see right now that says to me, you're going to be fine. So always let it come out, let it flow out." And now you can't shut him up, right? My thanks to Ben Cardin in his absence. He worked with Chris and I to get a lot of this stuff done in the last session of Congress. And Zeke Cohen, good to see you. And thank you for your efforts with BG&E. I'm going to do something today right along those lines. But this is not political. Right now, I really have exceeded my time. When I got home last night, I drive back and forth to Washington every morning and late every night. And so when I reached in the mailbox, Tony, there was my AFRO American newspaper and the big section on the heart. And I stood there and opened it up and looked at it, said, I'm going to read this while I eat my dinner, and I couldn't help but to think about you and the way you have been an example of perseverance, the way your family, going back decades, made such a real difference in this town. And to see you and Savannah working together like this, and everybody else that's working with AFRO Charities and with the paper, it just makes me feel good. So I used the idea of the heart last night, and I said, you know, the Afro is my heart. And I know that historically there is a separation between the fourth estate and the three branches of government. But I love the Afro. It's like family to me. And so I never saw that separation, and anything that I could ever do, I would do. I remember the days climbing up those steps, going up to the top of the building on Drudel Avenue to sit down and listen to Mr. Murphy sort of bring the community together and decide who was running for office and who wasn't, so that we weren't splitting up the vote. I remember sitting there hours after hours with Jake on occasions talking about what this city needed to do in terms of its activism at City Hall and elsewhere. And I remember as a paper boy who sold the Afro, "Hear the Afro!" You know, once you get it in you, you never get that yell out of you. Hopping on buses, Al Hathaway, you remember those days. You hop on a bus because you didn't have to pay if you had a sack, an Afro sack of papers. I would say drive 10 stops. By the time I got off, I'd sold all my papers, and it was just good memories, good memories. So I am here like everybody else to do something very small that will amount to something very big in this building that used to be Maryland's first radio station, used to be the home of some great person whose name does escape me, maybe deliberately. That was the School for the Performing Arts, so many things. And when we stood here that day and froze, because it was cold, and I have no heated tent that day. I can only imagine how the spirits that have worked at the Afro over the years, how they have to be smiling this morning. It was this paper that brought us through the dark and difficult days following slavery, took the example of Fred Douglass's North Star and made a North Star here in this city for all of us to follow. They were with us through World War I and World War II, the Great Migration, the periods of suffering and pain, the brutality of the 1960s, the liberation that occurred after that, the great bills that passed didn't pass simply because they were great bills. You had papers like the Afro leading the way, and the first, I should say, leading the way to put pressure on the Congress to do the right thing. And so when I think back to all of those great things, the Harlem Renaissance and everything we've been through, you know, it was a poet then that said, for the gone years and the now years and the maybe years, when we were washing and ironing and cooking and cleaning and sewing and weeping, never knowing, never understanding. For those cramped, dark, bewildered years, when we went to school to ask the questions of who we are, where have we come from, and from where are we going? We look back and we recognize that road and those generations made a bridge out of their bodies that we could be here for this. I'm so very, very happy. God bless all of you, and God bless the Afro American Newspapers.
No, that was wonderful. Congressman Mfume makes it tough for us to follow him always, but we are so lucky. We all know that we elected a stellar, first in their class federal delegation last November when we went to the polls. But to watch the work that they're doing now, on our behalf, standing up for us, standing up for our history, standing up for our cultures, our diversity, for our federal workers. I feel really lucky to live in Maryland. So thank you both. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to Savannah, and thank you to Dr. Draper for your incredible leadership. I had the opportunity to visit the archives last year, and little did I know that I would find myself in tears mid-visit as they were able to find pictures and newspaper clippings of my childhood neighbor, a man named Victor Daly, who was a professor at Howard University, and seeing his picture, seeing the article about the bridge championships that he had won, sort of brought all of these memories flooding back, and just to understand, and it helped me understand the power that these archives contain. That's just one story, right, of one individual who I happen to have the honor of growing up next door to. And so watching these archives become available to national people is going to be phenomenal. And I have to say, it's fitting to have both federal, state, and city elected officials here today, in addition to our amazing local leaders. Wanda, it's great to see you. Because this archives is going to make a difference at the national, state, and local levels, right? This archives is going to be visited by people from around the country. They are going to come to Baltimore because they know the Afro. They know the power of the history that the Afro has documented throughout time, and they want to learn from it. They're not going to be able to get access to these stories any other place in the world other than here in the historic Upton neighborhood of Baltimore City, which is exciting. At the state level, we know that the AFRO American Newspapers, the AFRO is not just a Baltimore institution, although we love to claim it. This is a state institution, something Maryland is proud of, to be the home to the AFRO. Right? And so I know that folks from around the state join me, other elected officials, our governor and more, join me in celebrating the fact that this archives is going to have a home here in Maryland. And at the city level, even at the neighborhood level, this archives is going to have a catalytic effect on this neighborhood and this city, bringing history to life for all of us. Not just folks who travel from across the nation, but also folks who are here in Baltimore, who want to come make an appointment to learn more about their neighborhood before they were there, to understand better the power of Baltimore and our neighborhoods and their history. So I'm honored to be here today. I'm excited to see it come into fruition. I'm grateful to all of you. I know that this kind of work takes a village. It takes persistence and dedication and true belief. So thank you to everybody for persisting, for working along the way. One of my favorite quotes is from the Pirkei Avot, an ancient Jewish text that says, "You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." That is where we are today. We have a beautiful historic structure that we are going to restore, working together, making sure that we continue carrying the baton of history for our part and continuing to do this good and important work. Thank you both so much for all you do. Thank you, everyone. And now I have the opportunity to introduce our Secretary of Housing and Community Development, who's been a champion working. We work alongside each other to bring more new markets tax credits to the state of Maryland, to make sure we're developing housing in every neighborhood that needs it across the state. My friend and our partner, Secretary Jake Day.
Well, thank you, Madam Comptroller. It's so good to be with all of you. It was just a couple of weeks ago that I had the good fortune to, a couple of months ago, excuse me, had the good fortune to tour the archives. And as I'm sure happens for anybody who tours, they pulled out all sorts of clippings from my town, from Salisbury, Maryland, where I live. Stories, some that would break your heart, some that would lift your heart up. And that connection is something that I think everyone ought to be able to experience. And thanks to this project, more are going to be able to. I spent a lot of my time in this neighborhood since taking this job. Thank you, Wanda, for making sure of that. And so much so that I think the mayor wants me to get a house in the neighborhood. We're working on that, right, Mayor? We're working on that. But what I have seen and what I get to spend my days working on in partnership with the great team here in the city is addressing vacant homes, attempting to fill them with families again. But I think what we know, what you and I know, is that cities are comprised of more than just housing. They also require vibrant culture. So we must fill the vacant spaces that exist that are central, are beautiful, are historical, with life and history. So what we're building here today, what you're building here today, I see exactly that. Since the Moore-Miller administration came into office 2 years ago, we've been proud to put just over $1.5 million into this project, totaling $2 million in state resources, just over $2 million in state resources into this transformative project. But what a small part of an incredible work, all thanks to you. But what I will say is, when we break ground here today, let's acknowledge that we're breaking ground on and building a temple to strong legacies and a testament to things that cannot and will not be erased. That's what we're breaking ground on. I'm so proud that I get to do that work day in and day out alongside of local leaders that are national exemplars in challenging times. None more so than my good friend, your good friend, Mayor, which is the best title anybody could have asked for. I got to have it for 8 years, but Mayor Brandon Scott.
Good afternoon, everybody. Or after morning, as I like to say. And happy Black History Month, everybody. And happy CIAA Week, Baltimore. And thank you all for being here. First, let me start off again and say thank you to my congressman. We didn't tell that story until last year. Only he, I, and my family knew that until last year. But I thought when we first told it that it was an important story to be told, because I've told it privately to young people who have been struggling. But when people hear me say that my congressman gave me my voice, it is exactly that. Because were it not for that day in the bathroom at Memorial Stadium with sewage dripping behind us, all of us been there and know how that is, I wouldn't be here today. So, sir, I want to again say thank you. Thank you for giving my voice, but also thank you for allowing a young man to look up and see that you can be an elected official and be a black man and be proud in that and not shake away from that or shy away from that. So everything that you see me do, from me, hear me say, is his fault. But today is a special day and would have been a special day at any time. But right now, when the mere existence of black people is under deeper attack, because we all know it was always under attack, at a time where these folk are set out to not just erase our history and our progress, but also erase us from people's memory, we are here today in Black Baltimore during Black History Month to send a unified message that you cannot erase us, because you cannot erase from which you came. And this is the point where the mayor reminds everybody that everything comes from Africa, even if you don't like it. I want to say thank you to Dr. Draper, Savannah, and the entire team at the AFRO for continuing to tell our stories the way that they should be told. And our great senator, and let's give him another round of applause. And our congressman, because I don't think people understand what they go through every day right now, right? When you hear the things that they say proudly and with ease, folks have to know that they are risking their freedom and life every single time they say it. Because you can see how crazy these folks are. That anybody who is a truth teller becomes a target for them. So we have to be thankful for them each and every day. But the senator already said it, right? He reminded us that you can't tell the story of America without the story of black people. And you can't tell the story of black people in America without the Afro. Everyone in Black Baltimore and beyond has an Afro story. You heard the congressman talk about selling the Afro. All of us remember Afro Clean Block, right? My Afro story is about a young student at Mervo and then St. Mary's College who had the opportunity to write for one of the most important black institutions in the world, the AFRO newspaper. But I got that opportunity because of one of the greatest educators to ever exist in Baltimore City Public Schools, my favorite teacher, Miss Laura Berg. Because she's here and I don't want to get any trouble, I won't tell y'all that she was getting me out of trouble by sending me to the Afro and getting me out of the school. I'll tell you that later. Now, but the rebirth of Upton Mansion is just the latest, but not the last chapter in the story of the greatest comeback story in Renaissance ever told. I also will tell y'all that one of my classmates from Mervo is the helicopter person in BPD. I swear he does that on purpose. I swear he does it. Every time I'm outside with him. But the next chapter, but not the last, in that greatest comeback story, that of Baltimore City. A renaissance of like no one will ever see. And it wasn't a question for me, and yes, it was cold when I visited too, if the city was going to invest in this project, but how much? And we were able to put $500,000 in ARPA, thank you gentlemen, $200,000 in CDBG, and $171,000 in a purchase money mortgage to help us preserve our history. To help us keep the mayor of Upton elected as she delivers on her promise, Miss Wanda Best. But also to remember and honor our past, to live in the present, but be thinking about the future, because that's the moment that we're in. Everything that we do now, we have to do all of those things and be unafraid to do them, even whatever consequence might come our way. That's what we have to understand. I was with Bishop Frank Reed last week, and you were there too, Dr. Draper, and he said what we have to understand is that this is a moment where some of us might have to die in order for us to protect the whole, in order for us to protect the better future, in order for us to protect all the things that so many people have already died for. And I'm not afraid, and I'm asking you all to not be afraid as well. Thank you very much.
So our mayor shouted out Mervo, and somebody else named Rob's City College. So I went to Douglas, and he ducks in the house. I see Polly and City and Forest Park. It's like the lady on the Miss whatever that show was. I see Nancy and Sally. But that's Baltimore. But how fitting is it, as our senator said, on this last day of Black History Month, that we gather here not just as witnesses, but as participants in history. We stand on land that once bore the weight of bondage in a community where African American luminaries built lives, businesses, and a legacy of resilience. And today we break ground for something new, something bold, something transformative. Not far from here, a formerly enslaved man and Civil War sergeant, my great-grandfather, John Henry Murphy Sr., founded the Afro American Newspaper. At 52 years old, and with $200 from his wife, Martha Howard Murphy, he purchased the name Afro and a printing press at an auction. Together with their 5 sons, George, John Jr., Dan, Carl, and Ornette, and their 5 daughters, Rose, Grace, Susan, Harriet, and Frances, they built more than a newspaper. It was a lifetime and a lifeline for Black voices, a platform for truth, and a beacon of hope. Can't you imagine how proud they would be today to see their mission to uplift and empower our people continue 132 years later? And I know they would be overjoyed that their great-great-granddaughter, Savannah, Grace, Murphy, Wood. Yes, we say all of the names. We say all of the names, all of the names, because most of us have Murphy in the middle of our names because most of the founders' descendants had daughters. To our hardworking, and when I call your name, I want you to raise your hand. I'm not calling individual names, and I call your category. To the hardworking Afro Charities team, and Afro Charities board led by Rob, bravo. To our federal, state, and city elected officials, wave back. We thank you. To other Murphy family members, our Afro shareholders and board members, some of whom traveled long distances to be here, your presence speaks volumes. Y'all not waving back, y'all not waving back. To the Afro News team, including, and I'm gonna have her stand up, she'll kill me later, including Denise Dorsey, who officially retired this week after nearly 50 years of service. We salute you. Now, this is a little aside. She really retired in December. But we didn't know how to do what she knew how to do. So she agreed to stay on. And yesterday we said goodbye again. And to the Upton Planning Commission, I know y'all want to know, you know who she is. She's going to stand up too. Wanda Best. Upton Planning Committee under Wanda's leadership, we honor you. See, it's our hope that the Upton Mansion will become more than a restored building. We envision it as a gathering place, a research hub, and a center for truth and transformation, where the past meets the present and where African American contributions in Baltimore and beyond are preserved and celebrated. We did not get here by ourselves. Can I say that again? Yes. We did not get here by ourselves. Every pledge, every grant, every investment, every historic tax credit has made today possible. And for that, we are grateful. But our work is not finished. Many of our institutions, especially Black media, are not just fighting to thrive, we're fighting to survive. Especially in this current politically charged environment. You do know that one of the first things that those who are not promoting democracy want to take over is a free press. So as I prepared to take my seat, they gave me 5 minutes, not 3. I do have 3 simple but urgent asks. Number 1, go to afro.com and subscribe today. Our Black History Month special ends tonight. And don't stop there. Advertise in the Afro. Follow us on social media. Now somebody, before I go to point 2, might say that was 3. That was 1A, 1B, 1C. Number 2, as you've already heard, please mark your calendars for Afro Charities fundraiser on June 7th. I look forward to seeing you there. And number 3, and this has been said before, but repetition is always good. Make a tax-deductible donation, or another, if you've done it already, another tax-deductible donation to Afro Charities, because every dollar invested in this mission is a dollar invested in our future. And now I have one final ask, and really that is 4. Would you join me in welcoming to the stage one of the hardest people I know, the visionary leader behind Afro Charities, my niece, the talented and tenacious. Here you go, Savannah Grace Murphy.
For everybody, but I'm glad you're still here. You're still with us. I'm so grateful that you all are still here with us. Hello, thank you to everybody who's here today. We made it to the groundbreaking. 5 years ago, in February 2020, we were here in the Carriage House celebrating AFRO Charities' successful application to restore this property and to transform it into a cultural hub and research center for the AFRO Archives. And that was right before COVID. 3 years later, in February 2023, we came back again to celebrate Senator Van Hollen and Cardin and Congressman Mfume's work to secure 2 federal earmarks for AFRO Charities to help move our archival work forward and to make this redevelopment project possible. Thank you so much for that support. And here we are today, 2 years later, on what is a gorgeous February afternoon, thank you very much. The last day of Black History Month, as you've heard, on the eve of Women's History Month, to celebrate another major milestone towards the completion of this transformative project. And I just want to thank every single person who's here right now for being with us on this journey. This is major. During the past 5 years, we have withstood project team turnover. We've pushed our way through COVID slowdowns. We have reworked budgets after supply chain disruptions and inflation blew up our estimates. And we had to completely redesign the building at the 11th hour, triggering new regulatory reviews at the city, state, and federal levels. This has been a project, okay? And this is all while we're building our organization and caring for one of the most important Black archives literally in the world. I don't say that lightly. When you see it, you'll understand. And if you have seen it, you already know. So getting to this point, as I mentioned, has not been easy, but the project and its generational impacts are worth it. At the very end of last year, we were able to successfully close our twin New Markets and Historic Tax Credits deal, providing us with the necessary financing to get started with construction. The $16 million deal is complex. Week after week, we checked in and made progress on Teams meetings with 30 people representing a dozen different entities. And I want to thank our money team on that deal, US Bank, Discover, the Community Builders, the Reinvestment Fund, and the Neighborhood Impact Investment Fund for your support on this project. I also want to thank our legal and accounting teams at Whiteford who sponsored this groundbreaking event today. Big round of applause for them, and Cone Resnick. And thank you to Ziegler Sneed and Commercial Construction for refining the design and helping us get to a construction number that would actually work. Yeah, we can pause. We're gonna give applause to everybody because that was hard work. I want to thank our board for their full attention and support throughout this entire process. And importantly, a huge thank you to Cross Street Partners for working with us for years to get to this point. In particular, I have to shout out Donovan Taylor and Carla Hinson at Cross Street. Their steadying presence and encouragement have grounded me when I started fantasizing about running back to LA and just focusing on my art career. So thank you for keeping me here. Like Dr. Draper, as she mentioned, I'm a descendant of John H. Murphy Sr. and Martha Elizabeth Howard Murphy, who purchased the AFRO in 1897 and laid a sturdy foundation for their descendants to build on. Every single day, I'm inspired by their vision, their sacrifice and investment, which has touched generations of people whom they never met. And this is the scale of time that we're working with. This is generational work. While we, like everyone else, are impacted by four-year presidential cycles, the whims of funders, and high-profile attempts to erase our history, our work transcends these things. It's spiritual, it's rooted in faith, and it's supported by powerful ancestral teams that are capable of performing miracles as we're witnessing here today. So shout out to the ancestors. Importantly, we're also supported by you. And we understand that our resilience comes from community and requires reciprocity. We're pouring into this site with all of the resources that are at our disposal, and we need this community to continue to support our work as we do so. Whether that's a $10 a month recurring donation, or securing naming rights within the building, or making a significant contribution to our investment fund so we have some stability long term, or even buying the Celebration blend of coffee from Black Acres Roastery, which is on offer out there. The proceeds from this month are going to us. Or volunteering your time in any way that you can support. We really just need everybody to be involved in this effort to hold this down. While Dr. Draper and I have familial reasons to be passionate about this work, I have to take a moment today to shout out our team. AFRO Charities is essentially a 61-year-old startup, and our small but mighty team puts in long hours and performs physically taxing labor every single day, and they have an unmatched dedication to making sure that we can provide robust access to the AFRO Archives. They understand firsthand from firsthand experience that the archives are a game changer and a national treasure. We have stories about world events told from Black perspectives. We have detailed accounts of birthday parties and weddings. We have records and transcripts related to battles at the federal level for fair employment practices. We have audio recordings of Thurgood Marshall discussing strategy for the Brown versus Board case with Carl Murphy. We probably have something about you, or your auntie, or your sorority, or your school in here as well. We have the record, and it's told in more than 3 million images, in thousands of letters, reporters' notebooks, and so much more. Once this building opens to the public, we'll become a complement to and a collaborator with Maryland's other historical destinations, adding an important perspective to this mix. You can look forward to access in the archives in our reading room, conversations series held here and throughout the state inspired by the history in the collections, youth programming and school tours, conferences and symposia, and art. Our inaugural exhibition in the gallery will be work by 3 Maryland-based artists, Sanaa Brown Bowers, Jason Patterson, and Glenda Richardson, who we commissioned to make new bodies of work inspired by their research in the AFRO Archives, and they're working on that right now. We could not have grown as much as we have in the past 5.5 years without the support of the generous foundations, businesses, individuals, and government agencies that have seen our potential, invested in it, and then have doubled down after seeing what we've been able to accomplish with their support. Thank you especially to our groundbreakers who are in here right now. Any groundbreakers in here? These are individual donors who contributed nearly $200,000 to this project at the end of 2023, leading up to our first ever fundraiser. And to the Maryland State Archives, I have to say a huge thank you to them as well. They've hosted us in their space, provided technical support to our team, and they're honorary members of AFRO Charities. Please be sure to save the date for our second ever fundraiser on June 7th. This is the third time you heard this? Fourth time? I don't know. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a party. You know we got good energy. It's going to be good. We will have more details to come. Before we all go our separate ways this afternoon, we want to know your dreams for this site. So you picked up a booklet on the way in. There's a little insert in there. You'll find a card asking, that card right there, asking for your reflections and visions for this project. So we'll ask that each of you take a moment to think that through and write down your thoughts. And when you're finished, you can drop those in a clear box that's over by the coffee. These cards will ultimately make their way into the archives, and you'll become part of the history that's shared here. And while you're doing that, I'll ask all of our speakers who are here, AFRO Charities and AFRO board members, and Miss Wanda Best, whose name you've heard 8 times today at least, to get ready for a photograph directly behind the building. Elected officials, please join us there. After that photo, we're going to have all Murphy family members join us right over there, so please be ready and on hand. And following that, we're going to have all of the leadership from our development partners for a photograph. So give us a little space to do those photos, if you will. Take your time to write your comments here. And then when we're finished with the photographs, there is a video projection playing in the carriage house, so we'll welcome you to come in there and to see a sneak peek. Thank you again for being here with us. Thank you to all of our funders, all of the government officials who are here. And enjoy. Thank you.